Credit cards are one of the most powerful financial instruments that the everyday person has access to. If you're good with them, you'll be rewarded with things like free travel, discounts on everyday shopping, and potentially savings of hundreds of thousands of dollars. However, if you make these 8 mistakes using credit cards, not only could you lose out on that free flight, but you could be penalized by having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in unnecessary interest payments. So in today's video, I'm gonna reveal these 8 common mistakes I see everyone making with credit cards, and more importantly, how you can avoid them. And if you're new here, hi, I'm John of John's Finance Tips. I'm the guy who's had well over 60 plus credit cards and millions more of miles and points in the decade I've been in the credit card space. And on this channel, we talk all things as it comes to money hacks. Today specifically, we're talking about credit card money hacks. So let's get into it. Mistake number 1. When I got my very first credit card ever, a Discover card, I remember my credit limit was $500. At the time, coolest thing ever. I had to tell everybody I got a credit card with a $500 credit limit. And after a little bit, that credit limit increased to $1,000, at which point I thought I was the coolest thing since sliced bread. Here I am, I'm in college with a $1,000 credit limit, look at me. And I bet if I poll the audience and say, hey, hands up if at one point you had a $500, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 credit limit and you thought that was the coolest thing ever. And keep your hands up if you then proceeded to use a majority of that $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 credit limit. Yeah, but the issue and the mistake is if you actually use the full credit limit extended to you, you hurt your credit score. Because one of the components of your credit score is credit utilization. It's the second most important one, and it accounts for 30% of your credit score. All credit utilization says is how much credit you're using over how much available credit you have. So if you had a $1,000 credit limit and you used a $500 of it, that's a 50% utilization. You're killing your score. So this very first mistake, and it's way too common when you start out, is just using too much of your credit. My advice is quite simple. Don't use as much of it, especially when you're first starting out. When the credit limit is $500, just use $100, $200. It doesn't matter because you're still building on your journey. Once you get to a credit limit of $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, you're probably not going to be wanting to swipe or needing to swipe $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. If you are, really think about how that's gonna impact your credit utilization. Now, if you're thinking it's really dumb that you have a credit limit but you can't use all of it, I don't disagree with you. I think it's silly as well. But the next mistake we'll talk about, I'll show you how you can kind of get around this limitation of using your credit. Mistake number 2. I'm gonna need some audience participation here. Take a look at this screenshot here and comment down below for me, or comment in your head or say it out loud. When do you think is the best day to pay this credit card bill? And I'll give you all 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. If you commented that the best day to pay it off is on the due date, you would be making mistake number 2, and that is paying your credit card on the due date. Let me explain. Remember, in mistake number 1, if you use too much of your credit utilization will be high and your credit score gets dinged. Well, how exactly do the credit bureaus know how much credit you're using? That data is sent to them from all the various banks. And the date that the banks send your credit utilization is on the closing date or the statement close date. On that date, they take a snapshot of all of your spend and send it off to the bureaus. Whether it's 5% utilization, 20%, 50%, 100%, that's what the bureaus have. Let's say your statement cycle starts on January 1st. And your closing date is January 31st. Well, your due date won't be for another 20 or 24 days. So between the closing date and the due date is when your utilization might artificially seem high, even though you have all the money in the world to make that payment. So the pro tip here is absolutely use your credit card. However, if you want to make sure that you're not impacted by credit utilization, then pay off the majority, 95, 98% of your bill before the close date, and then pay the rest off on the due date and you're good to go. And so on this particular bill, the next closing date is February 7th. If there was a balance, I would have tried to make the payment on February 4th or 3rd to make sure that thing is knocked off before the 7th when the utilization is taken and reported to all 3 credit bureaus. Mistake number 3. Every single day, when you walk out the front door, you lock the door. When you walk away from the car, you lock the door. When you leave your stuff in the gym locker, you lock the door. So then I ask you this, why do we not lock our credit profiles and we leave them openly accessible to pretty much anyone that has our social security number? The answer, we shouldn't. And so the mistake I see people committing is not freezing their credit profiles. For example, have you ever gone to buy a car and you're sitting through the negotiation process, you're talking about financing terms and like, hey, let's see if we can get you the best rate. Here, give us a social. And all of a sudden, the car dealership just ran your credit 2, 3, 4, 5 times trying to check for the best rates. But every single time, that's a hard pull where they pull the credit report. And folks, a hard inquiry accounts for 10% of your credit score. It's not major, but it can still ding you. And maybe you didn't know that. You thought they were just going to check, but what they were doing was pulling your credit every single time. Well, if you had frozen your credit report, that wouldn't have happened. It would have rejected, and then they would have come back to you, ask you to unfreeze your credit before they do the pull. And so you have way more control of what's happening on the back end. And freezing your credit is one of those things that should be automatic for everybody, because why should anybody be able to access your credit profile without your explicit consent? In the worst case, let's say you have your identity stolen, they have your social security number, they can just go open a bunch of different credit lines and you're on the hook for the debt. And when it comes to freezing your credit profile, there is no negative impact. It does not hurt you in any way whatsoever. It can only help you. For example, I have my credit profiles frozen for every single bureau, TransUnion, Equifax, as well as Experian. Whenever I want to apply for a credit card, I will then go individually unfreeze every bureau for 1 day or 2 days, apply for the card, and then once I'm approved, I freeze it right back up again. Now, to do this, just go to TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian, Google how to freeze credit for any of those 3 bureaus, and you might have to make a profile for all 3, but I think it's absolutely worth it, and put that freeze on. Is it a pain to unfreeze every time you need to get credit? Yes. However, is it better to have that sense of mind and sense of security knowing that nobody can access your credit profile without your explicit permission? Absolutely. So go ahead and make sure you get that done. Mistake number 4. I remember when I first started getting cashback credit cards, I thought it was the coolest thing that I could take all the cashback I'm earning and redeem it as a statement credit. That I was getting $10 back, $15 back. That was so cool to me because here's all this free money essentially that's coming back to me. Well, what I didn't know was instead of just taking it as free money, I could have flipped it into free travel. And I could have flipped it into free travel that could have got me to the tippy tip of the plane. And it would have been as easy as taking those points earned and instead of taking it as cashback, instead of taking it as an Amazon redemption, just moving it to an airline or flight partner. So the mistake here is redeeming points just for cashback instead of for elevated value in the form of travel. So here's 2 examples. The first one, let's say you get a Chase Sapphire Preferred. You get 60,000 Chase points, you're jumping for joy, let's rock it, and you redeem it for cashback. You would get $600. That's phenomenal. You just got $600 for meeting the minimum spend requirement, which is $4,000. Cool. However, if you had taken those 60,000 points and instead transferred it to the Flying Blue program and redeemed for a flight from anywhere in North America over to Europe, you could have gotten that for 50,000 points and paying $200 in taxes and fees. And that flight would have been in business class, which cash value could easily be well over $4,000 or $5,000 a person. So on one hand, your 60,000 points is $600. On the other hand, you can take just 50,000 of those 60,000 points, transfer it to an airline program, and book for a $5,000 business class ticket and only pay $200 out of pocket. So that's an example of how you can redeem way more value for your points than just strictly cashback. Another example, let's say you pay rent every single month, and so you got the no annual fee built MasterCard to earn points on the rent. Let's say you ended up earning 60,000 points in a year. Well, on one hand, you can take those 60,000 build points and redeem it on Amazon for some credit. You would get only $420 worth of Amazon credits. Or you could take those 60,000 build points, transfer them to American Airlines, and book a $8,000 business class flight from Chicago over to Japan on Japan Airlines Business and pay $5.60 out of pocket. If you're interested in checking out any of my top offers, all of my affiliate and referral links are down below. Mistake number 5. Growing up, whenever I saw people at the front of the plane, I always thought either they were really, really rich or they were not smart with their money because those seats cost $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 plus, which is unfathomable to me that anyone could ever have that much money to spend or want to spend that much money to sit in a seat. But now actually being someone who sits in the front of the plane, I realized, no, it's not the cash component at all. They're just being smart with points in miles. And I'll let you in on the secret. If you want to sit in the tippy tip of the plane, the truth is it's never been about how much you can spend. Sure, you can get your 1x, your 3x, your 5x, but if you need 60,000 points, 120,000 points, 250,000 points for you and your family, it's gonna take an incredible amount of spend. Instead, however, you should be looking at bonuses. And the mistake I see people making is that they think they can only get one bonus ever. But in reality, you can get bonuses again and again and again and again. Because most bonuses just have a language that says, if you have gotten this bonus in the last 24 months or 48 months, you can't get it. But that means if you got the bonus more than 24 months ago, you can get it again. If you got it more than 48 months ago, you can get it again. And there are some cards that just don't even have that restriction. One of the famous ones was the Bank of America Alaska Airlines credit card. I remember in 2015, 2016, I was going ham on this card where basically you would open the card, you get a sign-up bonus, 3-4 months later, you open again, get the sign-up bonus again, and you churn and churn and churn and churn. Now they've since introduced language and there's not as many of those cards available on the marketplace, though there are still a couple, but that truly is how you get to the tippy tip of the plane. Get a credit card, get a sign-up bonus. Get another credit card, get a sign-up bonus. Credit card, sign-up bonus, credit card, sign-up bonus. It's called churning, as opposed to spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the tens of thousands of points that you need to make those redemptions. So just go ahead and read the fine print for the bonus offers on credit cards you're interested in, because I guarantee you, unless it's an American Express credit card, most of them have some sort of time limit, and once you're outside the time limit, go for it again. Mistake number 6. So you're at the checkout counter picking up your rental car. They ask you if you want the rental insurance. You say, absolutely, I want it. Wrong. Or let's say you bought a product from Apple, AirPods, and you don't really like them, but all of a sudden it's already past 2 weeks and you can't return it, so what do? You feel like you gotta keep it. Wrong. Or you're about to get on a plane and suddenly the flight is delayed by 7+ hours. You're like, oh my gosh, I gotta go to the airline, they gotta reimburse me for some, what a pain. And that's the only viable option I have to get some food or potentially even a place to stay. Wrong. Folks, this is a very common mistake, and it's not using the insurances that are already added to your credit card. Many credit cards come with auto rental insurance, so you can decline what the car rental agency is going to charge you. American Express credit cards have one of the best return protections I've ever seen that cover you up to $300 per incident claim as long as the purchase was within 90 days. So that Apple example, if Apple doesn't take back the product and you bought it with a qualified American Express credit card, you can file a claim with Amex and they'll reimburse you for the return. And when it comes to travel, a lot of credit cards offer trip delay coverage. So starting at 6 hours potentially, you can file a claim for up to $50, $100, $200 a day. You have to check with the specific terms and conditions of the card, but it's already loaded on the card. You just have to make sure you're using the card to purchase for the flight. Mistake number 7. Listen, I get it. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, is a great way to live. However, when it comes to credit cards, having just one oftentimes isn't going to cut it, because certain cards serve certain purposes. You've got your premium travel cards that are going to give you lounge access. You have your elevated cashback cards that might give you 5% savings at some categories. And then you have cards that are specialized in helping you earn points for rent. I'm all about keeping my financial life simple. However, the mistake of having just one credit card could cost you big time. I'm not saying you need to have 10 cards, 15 cards, 20 cards, but what I am saying is have enough cards that are covering your major spend categories, be it 2 cards, 3 cards, 4 cards. It's totally fine. It's not gonna hurt you in any way. In fact, it can only benefit you because by having a higher overall credit limit, your utilization might appear lower. Remember the first mistake we said, credit utilization accounts for 30% of your credit score. That might give you a slight boost if you have large purchases in one given month. Mistake number 8. Folks, I'm a cheap dude. I kid you not. These t-shirts right here, I know people have been asking about them. I bought these from Primark, $4.99. For no other reason than they were cheap. Then it became kind of a branding thing, and so I ended up buying 15 of them for $4.99. This vest right here, this was a free work vest. The point I'm trying to make is I don't like spending money. However, I don't mind spending money on credit cards, specifically annual fees. Paying a $100 annual fee, $400 annual fee, $700 annual fee is something I'm okay with because I justify it with the benefits that the card offers. And I would implore you to do the same, because the mistake of having just no annual fee credit cards could be holding you back from unlocking some incredible value. I'm not saying you need to get every single credit card with an annual fee or only look at annual fee credit cards, but oftentimes with annual fee credit cards, you can still hack them where they're almost free, potentially paying you. For example, the Capital One Venture X, my #1 travel credit card for 2024. This card is a premium travel card. It competes with the Chase Sapphire Reserve. It competes with the American Express Platinum. The American Express Platinum, $695. Chase Sapphire Referred, $550. The Capital One Venture X, $395. So you're thinking, that's still crazy. It is crazy. However, the Capital One Venture X gives you a $100 anniversary credit and a $300 travel credit to book travel through the Capital One travel portal. $400 of credits, $395 annual fee. Effectively puts $5 back in your pocket. It still gives you lounge access, transfer partners, travel protections, all the things that the premium cards do, but somehow it puts money back in your pocket. So take that as a lesson. Even though something upfront may have an annual fee, there are still ways to hack it for it to be much cheaper or potentially put money in your pocket. And that's the video, folks. It's been a great one. If you have any comments, questions, drop them down below, and I'll catch y'all on the next video. Peace.